December 7th, 1941, 7:55 in the morning. 353 Japanese aircraft appear in the skies over Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. In less than 2 hours, 2,403 Americans are dead. 19 U.S. Navy ships are sunk or damaged. 188 aircraft destroyed. President Roosevelt goes before Congress the next day and calls it a date which will live in infamy. America enters World War II. But here's the question that historians, veterans, and government officials have been asking ever since. Did Roosevelt know it was coming? Because here's what they don't tell you in school. When Roosevelt announced the death toll to the American public, he said 300 people had died. The real number was 2,403. He lied about the casualties by 8 times. So the question isn't just did Roosevelt know? The question is, what else did the U.S. government hide about the worst attack on American soil before 9/11? Tonight, we go through the evidence. Welcome to Untold America, where we dig into the history they glossed over in school. Today, Pearl Harbor. Not the attack, you know that story. The cover-up, the questions, the documents, and what the evidence actually shows. Let's get into it. To understand Pearl Harbor, you need to understand where America stood in 1941. World War II had been raging in Europe for 2 years. Hitler's Germany was sweeping across the continent. Britain was fighting alone, exhausted and desperate. Roosevelt desperately wanted to help. He believed America needed to enter the war, but there was one massive problem: the American people. Polls showed that up to 94% of Americans opposed sending their sons to fight in a foreign war. Roosevelt had literally promised during his 1940 campaign, "Your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign wars." So how do you get a nation to go to war when the nation doesn't want to go? You wait for them to be attacked. In October 1940, over a year before Pearl Harbor, a U.S. Navy commander named Arthur McCollum submitted a secret 8-point memo to Roosevelt's top military advisors. The memo laid out a specific plan: 8 provocations against Japan designed to force Japan to, and I'm quoting from the document, commit an overt act of war against the United States. Cut off Japan's oil supply. Check. Move the U.S. Pacific Fleet to Hawaii, closer to Japan. Check. Support Japan's enemies in China. Check. Over the next year, Roosevelt adopted every single one of those 8 provocations. Was this a deliberate plan to start a war, or just coincidence? That's the question at the center of everything. Here's where the story gets complicated and disturbing. In the months before Pearl Harbor, the United States had broken Japanese secret military codes. America was reading Japanese military communications in real time, and the messages were not subtle. Japanese diplomatic cables had been ordering their embassies around the world to destroy their code books and documents, the classic sign that war is imminent. On November 27, 1941, 10 days before the attack, the U.S. military sent a war warning to commanders in the Pacific. The message stated, and these are the actual words, "The United States desires that Japan commit the first overt act." According to Secretary of War Henry Stimson, those words came directly from President Roosevelt. And then, on the morning of December 7th, there was one more warning. At 7:02 a.m., 53 minutes before the attack, 2 Army radar operators at Opana Point, Hawaii, detected a massive formation of aircraft approaching the island. 136 planes on their screen, heading straight for Pearl Harbor. They reported it immediately. A junior officer told them, quote, "Don't worry about it." 53 minutes later, Pearl Harbor was burning. To this day, nobody has been held accountable for ignoring that radar warning. The two commanders at Pearl Harbor, Admiral Husband Kimmel and General Walter Short, were stripped of their rank and blamed for the disaster. But here's the critical detail. Kimmel and Short had been deliberately kept in the dark. The intercepts that Washington was reading, they were never sent to Pearl Harbor. The commanders who were supposed to defend the base did not have the information they needed to do so. Why? That question has never been fully answered. Within hours of the attack, something unusual happened. Officials inside the State Department's Far Eastern Division began quietly removing documents from the official files. Incriminating evidence, papers that showed how America's provocations had pushed Japan to war, was being altered, destroyed, or hidden. This operation was later nicknamed Bally's Project. One State Department employee, Frank Schuler, documented what he witnessed. A secretary named Helen Schaefer was assigned to work in a locked room, no one else allowed in, going through filing cabinets of documents, rewriting, removing, replacing. Schuler later wrote, officials had secretly removed from official documents any and all incriminating evidence which would place blame on those responsible. And then there's the death toll. Remember, Roosevelt told the American public that 300 people died. The real number was 2,403. Why lie about the casualties? Historian Craig Nelson, who wrote one of the most comprehensive books on Pearl Harbor, explains it this way. The government wanted to control the narrative, show strength, not devastation. But 2,403 families knew the truth. 2,403 families who lost someone that morning. Their government told the country their loved ones were one of 300, not one of 2,403. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. So, did Roosevelt know? Here's the honest answer, and this is where Untold America is different from conspiracy channels. We follow the evidence wherever it goes. What we know: Roosevelt desperately wanted America in the war. His government implemented every provocation from the McCollum Memo. Japanese communications were being intercepted and decoded. Pearl Harbor's commanders were kept uninformed. Documents were altered after the attack. The death toll was publicly misrepresented. What we don't know: whether Roosevelt knew the specific target was Pearl Harbor, whether he chose to let it happen or simply failed to prevent it. Even FDR's own presidential library acknowledges, almost as soon as the attack happened, questions arose about prior knowledge. Their conclusion? No document or credible witness has proven Roosevelt knew in advance. But here's what the most credible historians agree on. America was not as surprised as the government claimed. Key people in Washington expected some kind of Japanese attack, and the men defending Pearl Harbor were denied the intelligence that might have saved thousands of lives. Whether that was incompetence or conspiracy, 2,403 Americans paid for it with their lives. Pearl Harbor changed everything. It united a divided nation overnight. It sent 16 million Americans to war, and it ultimately led to the defeat of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. But the questions around what the government knew and what it hid have never fully been answered. The documents altered in locked rooms. The commanders blamed for failures they weren't warned about. The death toll hidden from the public. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented facts. What you do with those facts, that's up to you. Drop a comment. Do you think Roosevelt knew, or was it the biggest intelligence failure in American history? Hit subscribe if you're new. Every week we bring you the history they left out of the textbooks. I'll see you in the next one. Watch next, MK Ultra, when the CIA experimented on Americans.